rates even...
Joe, as we continue this conversation, I want to mix in some new reporting just posted by Carol Lee and Courtney Kuby of NBC News. You were asking about these doctors and why they can't come out and give straight answers and what happens to these people. Well, we may have part of the answer in this new reporting from Carol and Courtney, which explains that during the visit, that mysterious visit to Walter Reed in November of 2019, President Trump mandated signed NDAs from physicians and non-medical staff, most of whom are active duty military service members. At least 2 doctors at Walter Reed then in 2019 refused to sign the NDA, and they were subsequently not permitted to have any involvement in the president's care. So the president asking doctors to sign non-disclosure agreements. Again, this is not for his visit a few days ago, but for his visit to Walter Reed, that mysterious one. We still don't know why he went exactly in November of 2019.
Well, it certainly wasn't for a routine checkup, or else, of course, you wouldn't have doctors sign NDAs.
Wow.
Which again tells us that the president is just as misleading about his health records as he is about his taxes. Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date.
Major, that's a nasty fly. Every major, that's a nasty fly. I don't like those suckers. I don't know about you in New Mexico, but I'm not into flies or mosquitoes.
I'm the only one on this stage who has prosecuted the big banks for taking advantage of America's homeowners.
He gets to run his campaign any way he chooses.
Who prosecuted for-profit colleges for taking advantage of our veterans.
Hey, get out of here.
That's the most persistent fly I've ever seen.
Nice.
And refused to condemn white supremacists.
Not true.
And
Not true.
No other insurer would take Nathan as long as Thomas was on the policy. Get out of here. You've seen me grab one of those before.
All right, there you go. A brief history of presidential politics and flies. Live look at the White House. Top of the hour. Good morning. And welcome to Morning Joe. It is Thursday, October 8th. Along with Joe, Willie, and me, we will fly away with White House reporter and for the Associated Press, Jonathan Lemire, NBC News and MSNBC contributor Shauna Thomas, and Chief White House correspondent for the New York Times, Peter Baker. He's the co-author of the new book, The Man Who Ran Washington, The Life and Times of James A. Baker III, a great book.
And let me just say, we are completely one with those who were deeply offended, shocked and stunned and saddened that people talked about the fly after such an important debate last night. It minimized actually the remarkable performance of both candidates. But really, a couple quick updates. I picked up on the Twitter last night. The fly, soon after that event, Ken Olin said got a deal from Netflix. Wow. And an update this morning. Yeah, the fly checked into Walter Reed Hospital this morning. So, yeah, our thoughts and prayers are with the fly. Now, let's go ahead and move on to the debate. All right, I don't see that. I get really just...
Yeah, well,
by the way, how much...
pale.
How much, whatever you want to call it, do you think you get from Donald Trump for having a fly on his head?
I know.
During the debate.
He hung in there with it. Let's give him that. The fly was there for like 2-3 minutes. He just dialed in. Yeah.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.
French fry, ice chai, cat tie, baked pie, pork chop, soda pop, scallop, kebab, soursop, hot pot, dumpling, chicken wing, Peking, onion ring. We are America's Kitchen. DoorDash. Every flavor welcome.
concur with Nicole Wallace's, I found very interesting instant analysis about the vice president's low energy performance. She called it flaccid.
Well, you know, I don't know. He maybe only has a first gear and a second gear anyway. I've never really seen him running at higher speeds, much higher speeds than that. So I can't say, can't tell much about that. I do think, though, that as a overall note, my kind of biggest global note of this event is, what does it mean for Donald Trump? By which I mean, we saw a debate tonight. There were 3 people speaking. 2 of them were reasonable and polite, and one of them was Mike Pence, who was mostly polite, but did interrupt and did do the guy thing of demanding and getting more time to speak than the woman. But compared to Donald Trump, Mike Pence is a prince of gentility, and you know, people who went through that, endured that Trump debate, watching this tonight, you have to wonder: are they watching this and thinking, oh, so it could be like this? Instead of the insanity, the brawling, stumbling, crazy insanity that they saw at the other debate. And so in that sense, Mike Pence may have done a great disservice to Donald Trump just by the stark contrast between the 2 of them, just in the way they handle themselves on the stage. Although, you know, without Donald Trump, Mike Pence would have been the rudest debater we've seen working this particular campaign so far.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.
I'll say that what Brian was just saying about the fly, and the Ively thing, they were visually distracting and strange things. I don't think we need to dwell on them. Everybody knows what they were, but those were the oddities of this debate. 2 weird things. One thing, something going on with Mike Pence's eye and that fly that nested in his hair quite comfortably for the length of an entire question. Other than that, it was like a visit to normal politics land, which is fine and to be expected when it comes to Senator Harris, who has been a mainstream Democratic politician essentially her whole life, even though she's had an interesting sort of rise to the place that she's in right now in the party. But Mike Pence was visiting from another world in which the Donald Trump presidency is a normal Republican presidency, and he was defending it on normal Republican terms, which sort of, I think, would have made for potentially a consequential debate if Pence was describing a presidency that existed. Maybe that's the way it exists in his own mind, but it's not the presidency that we've all lived through. And so he was defending something that's nothing like what we've lived through. Yeah. And trying to talk Senator Harris into the idea that she's the one who would represent a significant departure from the norms of American civility and moderation that he and Donald Trump represent. Yeah. So it's just, I mean, I don't think this debate is going to move the needle either way. I don't think either candidate surprised. The surprise was in the distance, I think, between what Vice President Pence was defending and what we've all seen from the presidency he serves.
Well, save money that's not being used. Introducing Money Scout from Huntington. Welcome.
Claire, I have to ask you first your overall impression.
Well, let me start with Pence. He was patronizing, which drove all the women crazy, and he was boring, which lost most of the men. So I don't think he gained any ground, and boy, did he need to. Kamala, on the other hand, she was strong, she was in command, and she had a hint of joy. There is something about Kamala that connects with people because you sense that there is joyfulness in her spirit. And this country needs that right now. I thought she showed off her foreign policy chops in a very strong way. I think she did a good job acquainting the country with who she is and where she came from. I really do think that what she needed tonight is for the United States of America to be comfortable with Kamala Harris, and I think she accomplished that tonight. I'm not sure it moves the polls anyway, but underneath it, I think it was a better night for Kamala Harris, certainly, than it was for Mike Pence.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching.
Anything apart from the fly being hilarious, and there'll probably be lots of memes about it tomorrow. I think the one thing that it could do is cement Donald Trump's biggest problem. His biggest problem is with women, with suburban women. And every woman who's ever been repeatedly interrupted in a meeting, who's ever not been allowed to finish a sentence, who's had a man refuse to follow the rules, and just blow past whatever the norms and the sort of guardrails are supposed to be, when then you attempt to do the same, are mowed down. Just watch Mike Pence do a softer version of what Donald Trump did last week. He repeatedly interrupted her. He demanded, he also repeatedly interrupted the other woman in the room, which is the moderator, who seemed to at some point lose control of him. And he also continually demanded that Kamala Harris answer his questions. She wasn't there to answer his questions. She was not there to do whatever it is that Mike Pence told her to do. She was there to talk to the American people and answer Susan Page's questions. And she continually would look at him when he would do that and say, I'm talking. And she would give, I'm speaking, and give that look that everybody with a black mom recognizes was usually the prelude to a problem. I recognized it. I think everybody recognized that she was Kamala in that moment. And I think that look and that moment and that sequence of events was very bad for Donald Trump, because the one thing Pence was supposed to do, and what he did in 2016, was to soften Donald Trump for women voters, for white women voters. He doesn't have black women, he'll never get them. But he, to get white suburban women to at least consider maybe not abandoning him, that voted for him before, this didn't help.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me.
Governor Scott Walker from Wisconsin, who's been working with Vice President Pence to prepare for tonight's debate. Thanks for joining me.
Good afternoon. Good to be with you.
Good to have you. Last time around, there were many headlines that actually credited Mike Pence for doing quite well. What is your strategy tonight?
Well, we want him to be Mike Pence, and Mike Pence was good, I think, 4 years ago because he was calm, he was collected, he showed he was a successful Midwestern governor. I don't think the strategy changes dramatically, other than I think he's going to lean in on a few key issues, talking about the recovery, talking about the contrast not only with him and Senator Harris, but with former Vice President Biden. So I expect him to show a little bit more emotion than 4 years ago, but not to be markedly different in style. Still be that calm Midwesterner that I think earned him good credit 4 years ago.
One thing that came up, as you know, at the first presidential debate was Donald Trump's inability to just simply condemn white supremacy. You're advising Vice President Pence tonight. Can you do that right now?
Absolutely. I've done it for years as governor. Mike Pence has done it. I think he'll reaffirm that, particularly if the topic in question come up, as I think the president did after the debate, made it even clearer. But certainly Mike Pence will do that.
Understood. We wanted to check that. I don't think the president made it clear. As you know, that's been a roiling debate for some time, but I did want to get your answer on that. Turning to COVID, which is such a big issue, what is the point of the Trump administration having all this CDC guidance if the president himself doesn't follow it?
Well, I think it's really important, and I assume this will be discussed tonight. If you look back to March, when the scientists, Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx, came in not only to Vice President Pence as the head of the task force, but to the president and others and said, we need to take action. We need to flatten the curve, where as many as 2.2 million Americans could die. They did. That's why we rushed to flatten the curve. We took the action necessary, and arguably hundreds of thousands of people were saved because of that. And while people may not always have appreciate everything the president says or some of the actions he takes, in the end, the action this administration's taken on this has been strong. You contrast that with Joe Biden, who early on spoke out and ridiculed the president for closing down travel, and who on H1N1, the vice president's own chief of staff said he screwed it up.
I understand you want to get into H1N1 history, but the question specifically, and I can put on the screen, CDC.
I'll take you home if you need to. Okay, right. Yeah. How are you feeling? A little better. Just stay away from it. Huh? Yeah.
says if you have COVID, you stay 6 feet away, you wear a mask, you stay home, preferably in one room. We're speaking tonight, and the president right now is violating those rules. Isn't that sending the wrong message and, more importantly, endangering people around him?
Well, he's not on public. You know, this is a president who loves to go to rallies, loves to be on public, who loves to talk to the American people, and he's not doing it for that exact reason. And again, I think it is important to contrast that with not just what's happening at this moment, but what this administration has done, and probably more equally, if not more importantly, what either of the candidates and the tickets would do going forward. Almost everything that we hear from Senator Harris and former Vice President Biden is really very similar, if not identical, to what this president and this administration have been doing and talking about. Well, that's what the American people need to look at.
Let's get into the facts of that, because on the screen we have something everyone just lived through. You just said, well, the president loves to talk to people. This isn't about what the president loves. This is about his obligation as commander-in-chief. He went out on that ride in the SUV against his own CDC guidelines. Do not leave your house except to get medical care. And, you know, you look more broadly and you say, the president breaks these rules, it puts people at risk. As someone involved in the team, doesn't that concern you? And what do you think the vice president, as leading the task force, should say tonight? If he, for example, and then I'll let you respond, if the vice president says on the stage tonight, and voters are watching, if he says it's very important that you follow the CDC guidelines and what the task force said, he will be, by definition, contradicting the president, Governor.
What would have put people at risk is failing to close down travel from places like China. Joe Biden ridiculed the president for doing that. The president acted on that. He took other action that literally saved hundreds of thousands of lives because he listened to what Dr. Fauci, Dr. Birx, and other scientists talked about. And I do think it's legitimate to contrast that not only with what the ridicule he got from Joe Biden on the travel restrictions, but also on H1N1. Remember, 60 million people were infected with that, and Biden's own former chief of staff said it was only because of chance that this wasn't one of the largest mass casualty events in global history.
And you
there
get
is
your
a
time,
contrast between the two.
You get your time to hit that, and I'm sure the vice president will hit it tonight. You're a governor. You had responsibilities. Do you support contact tracing?
Hey, the bottom line is I've been wearing a mask since March, long before Democrat and Republican governors alike have. My wife's a type 1 diabetic. I take this seriously. I actually wear a Packers mask. They won't let me wear anything but this bland one here at the debate site. But I've been serious about this since day one. I think we can walk and chew gum. Let me get into this, healthy and at the same time have a healthy economy.
Well, respectfully, Governor, I hear you saying that. I have no reason to disbelieve you. I see you with your mask on. But you are advising Vice President Pence for the re-election of Donald Trump, where he rips his mask off. The CDC tells COVID patients, you must tell close contacts about exposure. And as you know, and the headline's up on the screen, the White House isn't doing the contact tracing. That's not just about the modeling for the whole country. They're literally endangering people like yourself who work with them and show up at the White House. Isn't that wrong?
Well, the bottom line is I certainly wasn't close enough to stand up on the top of that point there is at yesterday, nor was anybody else. We can talk all night about particulars about him, but what he's doing with the nation, with the policy, I think is the most important. And when you look at the scientists, we hear a lot about science. This president, this administration has listened to Dr. Fauci, listened to Dr. Birx, listened to other scientists who called for swift action, and they took it early on this year, and we saved lives because of that. We're going to continue to take swift action, and we're going to do it in a way that doesn't permanently cripple our nation's economy, which would be devastating to hundreds of millions of Americans, many of whom are out of work and need to get back to work again, and they will with this president.
As for Vice President Pence, who runs the task force, he said there would be no second wave. Basically, there wasn't a second wave. My question to you would be, do you know how many states have a mounting caseload right now?
Well, the bottom line is a variety of cases. In my own state, Wisconsin, we've seen an increase even after the face mask mandate, I should say. And that's because there's a variety of factors out there. We all need to do our part. We need to be in this together. As I mentioned, I've been talking about this personally since March because of my own situation and that of my family. But the actions that have been taken...
I understand. Just my job asking the questions, Governor.
I understand.
Do you know how many states are facing this kind of rising caseload, sir?
Well, I'm not the one in the task force. I'll leave that to the experts there. What I'm saying is I believe the vice president tonight needs to lean in. He shouldn't be on his heels. He should lean in on this and point out what this administration has done, not just what's talked about in the media, but what they've actually done, how they've listened to Dr. Fauci, how they've listened to other scientists, the actions they've taken. Contrast that with what Joe Biden said about ridiculing the president on China on restricting travel and talk about what he did on H1N1.
You mentioned
ridiculing. We didn't have that mass fatality issue that even his own chief of staff from the past said that would happen.
So we got you on record on that, but you said what's discussed in the media, and the point here, and you know this is a big issue with an administration that's been caught lying so much, is what we're discussing in the media, everything I've mentioned to you tonight, are facts, and these are the results of the policy. So the fact that I'll just mention 37 states have these serious or rising caseloads, when Vice President Pence said in June there's no second wave, is something people need to know. They need to assess that tonight and his ability to deal with that. And I suppose.
And
go ahead, sir.
He didn't know back then that Governor Cuomo was going to send COVID positive people to nursing homes. You look at New Jersey and New York alone, not only are they responsible for a huge percentage of the cases, but sadly a major portion of the fatalities. The death rate per 100,000 is so much higher in New York and New Jersey because they failed the people of their state and in turn failed the people of this country. So
is that part of the argument tonight that you want Vice President Pence to say that because some of those regions that were hit first with higher density have those death counts, you're going to blame that on Democratic governors?
No, for your point, you raised the point about states. I think the Vice President tonight's going to talk about defending the record of listening to the scientists like Dr. Fauci. He's going to talk about contrasting that with the horrible decisions that Joe Biden ridiculed on early on and his failed record when it came to H1N1 and the fact that it was only for chance, largely a miracle, that it was not much more worse in terms of the 60 million Americans who were infected with that disease. And then he's going to talk about other things as well. He's going to talk about the economy. He's going to talk about health care. He's going to talk about public safety. He's going to talk about issues that matter to people in my state and all across the country.
Yeah, and your state, Wisconsin, of course, is a key one. I was last time, and it's one that's been up for grabs. Governor, the other thing I want to ask you about, having gone back and forth on COVID, and I appreciate you having the dialogue on behalf of the campaign.
I enjoy it.
Great. Well, you know, with the mask, I can't always tell whether you're...
These are important issues. Yeah. I'm smiling at that, right?
Yeah,
every time I'm happy, I'll just keep putting up the Packers.
Real quick, I will ask you this in closing. In 2015, you said we don't need an apprentice in the White House, that Donald Trump took 4 projects into bankruptcy, and you called on other Republicans to find an alternative to him. Final question, sir. Now you're here, obviously not advocating for him. Who was right? Scott Walker in 2015, who said any Republican would be better than Donald Trump, or Scott Walker today fighting for his re-election, sir?
I was wrong 5 years ago. I told Chuck Todd on this in the past and Meet the Press. I didn't think Donald Trump would govern as a conservative. I didn't think he'd be common sense, not having that track record. I was wrong. His regulatory reform, his tax cuts that benefit almost every American. You look at the other things that he's done have been wildly successful, and obviously before this global pandemic helped this country bring about the lowest unemployment rate we've seen in 50 years, the lowest ever recorded by category for African American, Hispanic American, Asian American, people with disabilities, and our veterans. I didn't think back then that he would be as successful going through this process. He has been. For that, I'm very thankful, not for my party, but for my country.
Understood, and appreciate your candor, saying you think you were wrong last time. People will make up their own minds. Everyone's been able to watch the debate tonight. Governor Walker from Wisconsin, appreciate you coming on the beat, sir. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos. The president continues to break his own administration's rules, now flatly breaking the conventional doctor's orders to isolate while contagious. President Trump literally doing what everyone with COVID has been strictly told not to do, leaving home to go to work and thus endangering others. Trump has spent the afternoon at work in the Oval Office with 2 aides. The decision to violate the medical guidance is not a secret, with a Marine taking the traditional post outside the Oval Office door. You see it right here. In every administration, that's the universal sign the president is in. And the White House confirmed there was basically that he was working there a few minutes later, building on the chief of staff's comments today that Trump wanted to go to work regardless.
His schedule right now is fluid. We're looking at his prognosis from a health standpoint. He wanted to go to the Oval yesterday. If he decides to go to the Oval, we've got safety protocols there.
Medical experts are dubious because Trump has been breaking safety protocols before and after he got COVID. From the instantly infamous ride outside Walter Reed, which history may record as one of the most absurd actions by a president under hospital care ever, to the White House's failure to practice basic distancing and contact tracing to protect their own people, as now at least 18 people have COVID. New to the list, Stephen Miller, one of 3 aides who tested positive after this walk you see here to Marine One just last week. And today is exactly the time when these facts matter, when the record matters, when the powerful can be put under scrutiny so you can make up your own mind, make up your own vote. The administration's record on COVID takes center stage, of course, tonight as the leader of its COVID task force, Mike Pence, is debating Kamala Harris in just a few hours, with Pence's record as chairman of the COVID task force is sure to be a focal point. Joining me now to get into all of it is the Reverend Al Sharpton. He is the host of MSNBC's Politics Station. He's the founder of the National Action Network, and, as many may recall, he has been on the debate stage himself before and knows what these high-pressure events are like and why they, we're told by many, are harder than they look. We're also joined by Dr. Jennifer Pena, a former White House doctor to Vice President Pence himself and a medical expert. Good evening to both of you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Rev, what is important in your view tonight, especially given the medical context that I just mentioned?
I think what is extremely important is that we're going to have the head of the president of the Raw Task Force, Vice President, debate. And I think that he will have the disadvantage of having to do that while his president, who appointed him to that task and who is his running mate, has violated every coronavirus protocol that has been announced, has made a mockery of being in quarantine or even in isolation by going on a joyride around the hospital on one day and then leaving and making a dramatic entry into the exterior steps, stepping up the exterior steps outside the White House, and then tearing off the face mask, and then going to work today. I don't know how you could have had a worse set of circumstances for Vice President Pence to have to go on that debate stage tonight and face a prosecutor, a trained prosecutor, but I've just given you the bill of particulars, how to nail him early, often, and all night long.
Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.
If there's another term for President Trump, I don't know what happens to America. Truth is really important, but especially in intelligence. President Trump doesn't care about facts. President Trump doesn't care about the truth. He doesn't listen to his experts.
That was Michael Hayden. He's a former CIA director, former NSA head. He joined a running and growing list of former national security officials who have announced their support for Joe Biden, with a warning against the threat posed by Donald Trump and the threat that he increasingly presents to our safety, our foreign alliances, and our national security. As perhaps made obvious by his amped up Twitter activity, Donald Trump is currently on steroids to treat his coronavirus infection. It's a diagnosis that our next guest, another former CIA director, now warns is just another reason for us to feel alarmed in this moment. In a new book, Director Brennan writes, quote, "I sorely wish that I had never felt compelled to speak out as vociferously as I have against a sitting president of the United States. It has given me no pleasure to do so. But as long as Mr. Trump continues to trample the tenets of our democracy, lie to the American people, denigrate the office of the presidency, endanger our national security, and sully our reputation around the world, I will not relent
in my criticism of him. Joining us now is John Brennan. His new book, Undaunted, My Fight Against America's Enemies at Home and Abroad, is just out. Also joining us, former managing editor at Time Magazine and former Undersecretary of State for Public Diplomacy, my often sidekick, Rick Stengel's here. And lucky for us, both of you are MSNBC analysts. Director Brennan, I want to start on the book. Take me, because I have heard this from former peers of yours in the intelligence community, that you speak for so many of them who, just from that sort of DNA that I think you describe in that excerpt, are just not comfortable stepping into the political fray. You have stormed into the political fray. You have drawn fire from this president, and you have advocated on behalf of American national security, but it hasn't been without a lot of arrows pointed at you. Just talk about that experience and how that informed the writing of the book.
Well, Nicole, as you said, I am uncomfortable speaking out so stridently against a sitting president of the United States. For over 33 years, I served presidents and administrations of both political parties and had tremendous respect and admiration for the seriousness with which they approach their job and their solemn duties. I clearly have seen that Donald Trump does not pay the same type of respect to the office of the presidency. We know that he had no experience coming into office, and I thought he was going to, I would hope he was going to change his ways, but he didn't. And so therefore, having served my country for well over 3 decades and trying to protect the right of American citizens to speak out freely, I am now exercising that right, because clearly this is a very dangerous time, a very abnormal time. Just like Mike Hayden, who you knew and worked with during the Bush administration, Mike is an outstanding patriot. He has served this country with great distinction over the course of his entire professional career. And despite suffering the debilitating effects of a stroke, his voice now is more powerful than ever in terms of underscoring the dangers of a Trump administration that is going to go into another 4 years of trampling our democratic foundations and principles, and as I said, sullying the reputation as well as the standing of the United States in this world. And so therefore, I'm continuing to speak. That's one of the reasons why I decided to write this memoir. It's much more about my career and being able to witness history, as opposed to just the interactions I've had with Donald Trump. I met him only once, but clearly over the last 3.5 years, I have felt it my responsibility and obligation to underline just how challenging the future is if Donald Trump remains in the White House.
You know, Director Brennan, if I could just say for the benefit of our readers, we benefited so much outside of sort of the clash between yourself and the president. There have been some extraordinary moments during his presidency, the slaughter of Jamal Khashoggi, and your ability to help us understand what was going on behind the scenes. Can you just broaden the lens a little bit and help us understand what you think has happened to U.S. foreign policy under Donald Trump? And John Bolton gave us kind of an insider account of believing that U.S. foreign policy, at least as it pertained to China and Turkey, might have been so corrupted that he picked up the phone and called Bill Barr. And that's an inside account. What are your concerns just with your 3 decades of relationships around the world?
Well, Donald Trump clearly operates like an authoritarian leader. The authoritarian that I have observed and analyzed over the course of my career, he has taken the pages out of their playbooks. He tries to suppress any type of political criticism or opposition. He tries to manipulate and control enforcement justice. He tries to denigrate the media, and in terms of any type of information that is put out that tries to really expose his fraudulent behavior as well as his dishonesty and his lies. And so therefore, when I think about how the United States has played this leading role in the free world over the last 75 years since World War II, and how countries around the world, our allies and partners, have looked for strong leadership from the United States, irrespective of the party affiliation of a president, I think they are very much have been unnerved over the last 3.5+ years, because Donald Trump continues looking at the world through this prism of what is best for Donald Trump. And his mantra of America first, is trying to play to his base here. And it's being heard around the world that the United States is going to do things to the exclusion of the interests of others as well as to global stability. And so that's why I think he is a very dangerous person to be at the helm of our government. And that's why I think that there is a lot of concern about what the future holds if, in fact, Donald Trump is reelected.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.
President Trump's Supreme Court pick, Amy Coney Barrett, a constitutional conservative, proud Christian, and mother of 7. But the radical left is desperate to stop her, even attacking Coney Barrett's faith and family.
Amy Coney Barrett, Catholic, I mean really, really Catholic.
Help Amy Coney Barrett and President Trump fight back. Text CONFIRM to 88022. Stand up for conservative values. Support President Trump.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
With each presidential election, we put the fate of our country in the hands of one person. Should this person be Donald Trump?
You questioning his fitness? Yes, I do. I really question his fitness to be in this office.
Donald Trump expects blind loyalty and subservience, qualities usually found in narcissistic, vengeful autocrats.
Dr. Anthony Fauci says that without proper precautions heading into fall and winter, the United States, quote, could have 300,000 to 400,000 COVID-19 deaths. That is, of course, a horrifying prospect, but not necessarily a surprising one, given the lack of adequate leadership on the part of Donald Trump and his White House. In fact, not only is the administration failing to lead, they're actively doing harm at this point. USA Today counted 23 instances just since September 1st of this year when Trump or his own staff defied their own CDC's coronavirus guidelines, and that was before Trump returned to the Oval Office this afternoon. Joining our conversation, former Obama White House Health Policy Director, MSNBC medical contributor, our friend Dr. Kavita Patel. First, I've got to get your take on where we stand with a president who is either in the grips of this experimental treatment, still contagious, rattling around the residence, and heading over to the Oval Office today.
Yeah, it's a great question, Nicole, that we're all wondering about it. And you can imagine that a number of my medical colleagues and I are furiously texting, trying to make sense out of what little public information we're getting from the president's physician, who sent out a pretty much non-statement statement that said, you know, the president is feeling great. And we know that watching patients with COVID-19, that not only are they highly infectious, but there's just, we're hearing something publicly that is not jive, honestly, with what we know in taking care of patients who receive the kinds of treatments the president had. Everything from that antibody cocktail to the antiviral to dexamethasone, the steroid. It's a pretty consequential treatment. So I have to, and then on top of that, hearing that, you know, the White House is kind of secretly contacting Gold Star families who were at an event Sunday, that they were in contact with someone who was positive, and yet we still are being told that we don't want to look backwards when asked about the president's last known negative test or what the efforts for contact tracing have revealed. And I think all of this, Nicole, would be kind of in and of itself insane. But what's even more insane is hearing that the president wants to participate in a debate, and yet then not having these answers seems reasonable enough for people like Vice President Joe Biden, his entire staff, and all the people involved with the Trump campaign to put themselves at risk. It's just mind-boggling.
Let me ask you, though, about the White House itself. I mean, I had the privilege of working there. It really is a special and sacred place. It is now the site of a super spreader event, and people that had the privilege of going to events there, the ceremony to honor a nominee to the Supreme Court. As you said, the Daily Beast is reporting this hour that veterans group that brought Gold Star families to the White House for an event Monday, which is much earlier than the White House has acknowledged a single positive COVID test for any of the, I think, 17 or 18 people now in the president's orbit who have turned up positive and are sick with COVID. What should be happening at the White House right now?
Yeah, and I can't underscore your comments about how truly sacred the grounds are in terms of the staff that are there and the privilege that goes along with being one of those staff members. That has all been violated. What should be happening is not just standard contact tracing, Nicole. I mean, this should go well beyond what's standard, because it is one of the most kind of sacred institutions, not just from, the fact that it's a privilege to work there, but the exposure, to your point, the number of people that are in and out of that complex, as well as a matter of national security. I mean, now we've got not only, Joint Chiefs of Staff, Navy Commandant. I mean, we have dignitaries that are visiting the staff that then also visit those dignitaries. So this is a big deal. The three things that need to be done: deep cleaning. We've seen some photo evidence of that. Number two is not only reducing the number of staff that are in contact with the president, that entire complex needs to be dramatically reduced in terms of staffing. And then the third thing that needs to be done, and I can tell you right now that it's not being done, the third thing that needs to be done is extensive contact tracing along with continuous support to make sure that people who are contacted get tested. And I have no proof that any of that is really being done on a consistent basis.
We have proof of the opposite. A lot of people who were in and around those events saying they haven't been contacted. Dr. Kavita Patel, thank you so much for spending some time with us today.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube.
And we started there yesterday, and again, 4 years ago today, the Access Hollywood tape came out. John Podesta's emails started leaking. We do not know how this is going to end. We don't know what we'll be pleading with tomorrow, for being perfectly honest here today. But something has seeped into the collective consciousness, and it's that Donald Trump does not care about you. Donald Trump does not care about anybody that lives with him or works with him. And then every day he seems intent on giving us example after example after example after example to cement his own worst narratives. Jason Johnson said on the show yesterday, he's a walking negative advertisement against himself. It seems that he has become that really in a pretty concerted way around his failures on coronavirus, as though he's trying.
Well, I think different presidents settle into a different strategy to get reelected, right? In 1984, Ronald Reagan. In 1996, Bill Clinton sought to have a referendum on themselves and a referendum on the direction of where the country was going. In 2004 with George Bush, in 2012 with Barack Obama, it's a choice between one vision or the other. And in reality, what Donald Trump needed to get this election to, once COVID hit, was into a choice.
Right.
And yet it's never been more than a referendum. And it's stuck on that. And as you said, each and every day we're reminded of the failures of this administration. We're reminded of the character flaws. We're reminded of the empathy flaws that exist within Donald Trump. And this, quite frankly, is why Mike Pence's job is going to be so difficult tonight. Because it's not just about the comparison between Trump and Biden or Pence and Kamala Harris. In reality, what Mike Pence has to do tonight is to get the American people to think fundamentally about a presidency that they're watching the reality show of each and every day, horrified by what the next episode will show. And again, Donald Trump doesn't have the attention span or the strategy to get this into anything else other than that. And I think every day, nothing has been more crystallizing really than the last week. Once he walked off that stage in the debate and we'd seen that for 90 minutes, all the way into not just diagnosed with coronavirus, but the actions of going on that ride out to see supporters, rushing back to the White House, and now into the Oval Office, demanding that people put on PPE to come have a meeting that you could do on a conference call or a Zoom.
Like the rest of us, I want to follow up with you, Robert Gibbs. It's a little sort of political wonkiness, but our viewers could all teach political science after these last 4 years. So let me just go a little deeper on this. Structurally, this is exactly right. An incumbent president with an approval rating as low as Donald Trump's, and his approval rating, again, if you love him or hate him, it has always hovered around 40%, cannot win if the conversation and the news in these final weeks is about that president. One of the things that someone involved in debate prep said to me is that he is constitutionally incapable of shutting up long enough to let the conversation be anything that his opponent says, because he doesn't let him talk. I mean, it would seem that with that locked in now, with this race clearly in the minds of the American voters, a referendum on Donald Trump's presidency, on his failures to contain and protect people from COVID, there is very little that Pence can do tonight to alter that.
I think it's tremendously difficult, the task that he has, because he's not simply the vice president. He's not simply the explainer of the president's actions. Hey, good luck with that, Mr. Vice President. But he's also the head of the coronavirus task force, right? He's going to have to answer a series of questions. Why is the building with the most resources on planet Earth not doing contact tracing?
Right.
Why are masks still not mandatory on the campus? I mean, it isn't rocket science, right? It's really quite basic, and I think there's no doubt Pence has a tough job. And look, in some ways, even on Joe Biden's not his most perfect days, his best strategy has still been let Donald Trump be Donald Trump. And you heard this so much. We're gonna have to let Donald Trump be Donald Trump. Letting Donald Trump be Donald Trump is why his approval rating is in the low 40s. It's why his approval rating and his vote number are almost identical. And you see it in poll after poll, that inability to get beyond that 40, 41, 42, 43. And look, I don't think I'm ever going to live long enough to see a Democrat win Florida by 11 points. So I'm not believing all of these polls. But look, there's clearly something that's going on out there that sees an election that has otherwise been so remarkably stable, all of a sudden change in the last week.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click